They made black beauty a crime, punishable by jail time. Not metaphorically, not in some abstract sense. Actual laws, actual punishments written into official codes, targeting free black women who wore their hair naturally, adorned themselves with jewels, or dressed with elegance that rivaled white society. A simple act of self-expression became dangerous. Standing tall in your own beauty became a threat, and the penalty was harsh. Fines, public humiliation, imprisonment. In 1786, the governor of Louisiana signed a law making it illegal for black women, free black women who owned property, ran businesses, and held power, to show their natural hair in public. The penalty? Fines, public humiliation, imprisonment. Their crime? Looking too beautiful, dressing too well, making white women feel threatened by their elegance. But here's what most people never learn. This law marked just one front in a 400-year struggle that spanned 3 continents. The French Code Noir in 1685, the Spanish Tignon laws in 1786, the American Black Codes in 1865, corporate dress codes in 1985, school suspensions in 2024. Different centuries, different empires, same fear. Black beauty that couldn't be controlled. Because every time an enslaved African woman braided her hair in traditional patterns, she was mapping escape routes in plain sight. Every time a free black woman walked through New Orleans with jewels in her head wrap, she was shattering the lie that whiteness was the standard of beauty. And they knew it. That's why they kept writing laws, because without legal force, they couldn't compete with black brilliance. And that terrified them. This isn't the story they taught you in school. This is the story of how fashion became a battlefield, how hair became an act of rebellion, and how black people turned every restriction into revolution. So ask yourself this: what kind of power must a hairstyle hold if the world once feared it enough to make it a crime? What they saw and what it meant. When European traders first stepped onto the West African coast in the 1500s, they found something they hadn't prepared for. The people they came to enslave weren't savage or simple. They were radiant, regal, unimaginably sophisticated. Their hair whispered secrets that the oppressors could never hear. It carried meaning, a silent language of resistance. Spiraling braids formed with geometric precision, jeweled with gold dust and cowrie shells, sculpted into crowns that took days to complete. Each pattern told a story of bloodline, age, tribe, status, power. A map of identity written in hair. In Yoruba lands, your braid marked your family name. Among the Fulani, brides were crowned in elaborate patterns that took 3 days to finish. Ethiopian warriors wore cornrows that announced their victories. Across kingdoms, hair spoke louder than words. And the fabrics? The Ashanti wove kente so intricate that European traders tried to buy the secrets behind it. The weavers refused. What they created went beyond clothing, carrying culture in every thread, and that terrified them. How do you enslave people who outshine you in every measure of civilization? How do you call them inferior when they look like royalty? When the ships came, millions were taken, torn from their land, stripped of everything except memory. And even in chains, that memory found a way to speak. On stolen Sundays, enslaved women braided their hair in secret. They wrapped their cloth with the same royal precision their ancestors had. Each twist was defiance, each pattern resistance. The colonizers saw it, and it unsettled them. Because every time a black woman walked past, radiant and unbroken, the lie that sustained their power began to crack. The legal war on beauty. They knew brute force wouldn't be enough. Chains could hold bodies but not identity. So they chose something quieter and far more effective. They weaponized the law. Across every empire, the same pattern appeared. The French began it in 1685. The British copied it. The Spanish refined it. The Americans perfected it. 4 centuries, 4 languages, one shared obsession: control black beauty. It started with Louis XIV's Code Noir, 60 articles that dictated every detail of black existence in French colonies, from religion to clothing. Article 44 banned fine fabrics and jewelry. Enslaved people could only wear coarse cloth supplied by enslavers. No silks, no gold. No adornment that said, "I remember who I am." The message was clear. Erase identity, erase pride. Then came South Carolina's Negro Act of 1735. It required enslaved people to wear Negro cloth, the roughest, cheapest fabric money could buy. One survivor later said it felt like wearing ground glass. Clothing became a tool of punishment, a daily reminder of control. But the fear didn't stop there. In 1786, Louisiana's governor faced complaints from white women in New Orleans. Free black women had grown wealthy and stylish, dressing in silks, gold, and elaborate head wraps that turned heads wherever they walked. The solution? The Tignon Laws, a decree forcing all black women, free or enslaved, to cover their hair in plain cloth, stripped of feathers, jewels, or color. The intent was humiliation, to mark them as less than. But instead, they transformed the Tignon into art, wrapping it higher, brighter, prouder than ever. After slavery ended, the laws simply evolved. The Black Codes of 1865 told freedmen what they could wear. No fine fabrics, no bright colors, no clothing above their condition. Freedom, but only if it looked obedient. The pattern was everywhere, every colony, every decade. Control the clothes, control the image. Because appearance shaped more than perception. Visibility, influence, and memory rested in every gesture. And that's what terrified them most. If you could remember how your ancestors dressed, you could remember who you were. At Black Stories Untold, we uncover the moments when art became resistance. If you want to keep learning the truths hidden beneath the surface, subscribe now. Now, on to the video. The intelligence hidden in hair. Every oppressive system makes the same fatal mistake. It underestimates the people it tries to control. Fear, rules, and force might break bodies, silence voices, or try to erase memory. But strength thrives in quiet defiance. Intelligence hides in everyday acts. Resilience flows through traditions passed down across generations. Chains and laws can restrict movement, but spirit refuses to be caged, and every attempt to suppress it only sharpens its power. Colonizers thought they'd won. They had laws, they had penalties, but they didn't understand that Black people had already mastered the art of quiet resistance, technologies of survival that would thrive right under their gaze. They saw head wraps and thought obedience. They saw braids and thought style. What they were actually looking at were maps, messages, and weapons disguised as beauty. When Spanish authorities in Louisiana ordered all Black women to cover their hair with tignons, the women obeyed, but on their own terms. They used the richest fabrics they could find, bright madras from India, silk when they could afford it, bold colors that defied the law's dullness. They wrapped their tignons higher, more elaborate, jeweled from within. What was meant as a badge of shame became a crown of power. Within decades, white women were copying the look. The law meant to humiliate had created fashion. But the most powerful rebellion was hidden in the braids. In Colombia, escaped Africans built the first free Black town, San Basilio de Palenque, and turned hairstyles into coded networks. Thick coiled braids called departs signaled when escape was near. Curved lines mapped the direction to freedom. Inside the braids, women hid seeds, rice, okra, black-eyed peas, to feed the future, and gold dust stolen from mines to fund new lives. Overseers saw just hair. They were looking at a map of liberation. Enslaved people saved coins, traded produce, worked Sundays just to buy ribbons, buttons, or bits of colored cloth. They turned rags into style, plain dresses into art. Women added bright head wraps. Men polished shoes and buttons until they gleamed. Every polished surface said, "You will not strip me of my dignity." The war that never ended. They thought it ended. The laws were gone, the whips were silent. The ink of the old decrees had long faded in the dusty archives. But what they never understood, what they could never predict, was that systems like theirs don't die when you strike them down. They adapt. They change costume. They learn new words, And the same fear that once created the Tinyon Law didn't disappear. It mutated. It hid behind words like professionalism, dress code, company policy. The weapon shifted from chain to rulebook, controlling bodies through law instead of force. The goal remained unchanged. Make them smaller, make them invisible, make them forget who they are. In schools, in offices, in courtrooms, the battle continued. Students sent home for wearing locks, athletes forced to cut their braids before a game, corporate memos quietly dictating that neat means straight. The centuries passed, but the message remained. Black hair was never the problem. The problem was that it refused to bow. Head wraps once used to humiliate, now crowned queens. African prints and textiles marched onto global runways, bold, unmissable, untouchable. What was once shame became power. What was once forbidden became celebrated. Every ribbon, every twist, every color was a victory, a message, a challenge. You cannot legislate beauty. The truth no empire could ever bury is simple but terrifying. Every restriction sparked invention. Every insult forged a new language. Every attempt to erase identity only made it stronger. Black hair is not just hair. It is a memory. It is language. It is resistance written on the skin itself. Long after the last law is gone, long after the last judge speaks, the braids will hold the stories. The curls will rise toward the sun, and the crown, unyielding, untouchable, unstoppable, will still shine. The truth they feared. As we trace the centuries-long struggle for dignity and self-expression, one truth becomes clear. Black culture has always resisted, persisted, and thrived, despite relentless attempts to erase it. And that's the truth they feared. 400 years, across 3 continents, they wrote law after law, trying to control what they could not understand, trying to contain what they could never break. Every time a Black person looked in the mirror and saw beauty, dignity, and cultural memory reflected back, the lie of racial hierarchy cracked a little more. They could not kill the memory of Africa woven into every braid, the creativity that turned restrictions into art, or the pride that refused to be legislated away. Every twist, every curl, every adornment became an act of resistance, a message passed through generations, a quiet rebellion written on the skin itself. Every Black person alive today carries this legacy. Every time you wear your hair in its natural texture, every time you embrace a traditional pattern, every time you dress with confidence in your own aesthetic, you are participating in a story they could never erase. From the Code Noir to the Tinyon laws, the Black codes, corporate dress codes, and even school suspensions in 2024, they tried to legislate control over Black expression. But Black people have said no, again and again. You can chain the body, but you cannot chain beauty, culture, or pride. They tried to make our beauty illegal. Instead, they made it unstoppable. That is power. That is why we're still here, still creating, still fly, still free. And now we want to hear from you. What do you think is the most dangerous thing about Black beauty that made them try to control it for centuries? Comment your answer below, because the answer might just change the way you see the power that lives in every braid, every curl, every crown of hair we wear. Black fashion shook their world, but what they feared most has been buried for centuries. In our next video, we uncover the dark secrets they tried to hide, the truths too dangerous to tell. Until now, click if you dare and see what they didn't want you to know.